And welcome back to The Rock. And of course, it is now literally 4 minutes to go before the polls open. And if you're getting in touch with us, hashtag LGE 2021, hashtag SA Decides 2021. We'd love to hear from you, and already hearing from people saying that their lights are out. As you know, we were told none of that will happen. So I'm not sure. Eskom said no load shedding. Yeah. So whether it's just power interruptions because of other reasons, but I've seen at least 2 tweets speaking to the fact that people have no electricity. But we'll come back to that later on. For now, though, the Electoral Commission, that's the IEC, says that it has put measures in place to ensure that the adherence of COVID-19 protocols during this local government elections will take place today. And South Africans are, of course, heading to the polls to cast their vote for the municipal elections. So for an update on this, we're joined by the General Manager of the IEC's Electoral Matters, Granville Abrahams. Good to have you with us. Good morning.
Good morning, Sakina, and thank you for the opportunity.
Granville, I want to get straight into it because there's a tweet that I saw from someone who actually has a question for the IEC. And the question was, can you please ask someone from the IEC to explain why can't I take pictures of my ballot paper? I don't understand why that should be prohibited. Please clarify.
Thank you, Sakina. That's a very important question. We amended the legislation, I think it was about 3 elections back, as a result of a practice that was happening whereby you would find that certain political parties would ask voters to provide evidence of their choices in exchange for favors. Now, this also contravenes the secrecy of the ballot. And as a result of this, we had to, obviously with the consensus of the political parties in our national PLC, we amended the legislation and we've now outlawed that.
All right, so let me bring in, I mean, as soon as we were talking about some of the comments that viewers are posting here, I was actually looking for one of them that I saw pop up a bit earlier. You know, I've never really seen doubt being cast over the IEC and the role that they play in elections. The IEC has always been almost a pillar of strength and something, an organization that's been held in the greatest esteem. However, it just seems that some people are questioning the IEC at the moment and worrying that, you know, there's going to be interference or things are not going to go according to the plan in any way. I mean, can we perhaps address some of the concerns that South Africans may be feeling about the IEC?
Well, Leanne, first of all, I think we welcome the criticism. We cannot just be living in a honeymoon period. We welcome the criticism. It keeps us on our toes, and we are committed to delivering free and fair elections. And where there is any doubt, we ask people at all times. And throughout this difficult process that we have, we said if there are doubts, if there are aspersions, then please bring them to us. We will investigate and we will remedy. But unfortunately, we haven't had anyone that could come forward to us and say, this is where you have erred. But we respect the fact that people want to hold us accountable, and we welcome that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Granville, of course, lots of talk at this time about, you know, some discrepancies creeping in. And we've seen quite a few pictures this morning, people talking about stuffed ballot boxes that don't necessarily seem to be following the right protocols. Now, I know that the IEC has regular briefings throughout the day, and that will probably be addressed. But in terms of Mukiti's comment this morning, says, when are ballot boxes supposed to be opened, and why are they not sealed? So can we speak to that?
Yes. No, thanks for that question. The procedure is that during these special voting days, at the start, the presiding officer has to, in the presence of party agents, show the box is open, seal it, ballots are entered in there, they are stored overnight, and party agents can record those seals, also affix their own seals. So that is the procedure. We have 23,148 voting stations, and we obviously strive to ensure that this happens at all of them. We however have these aberrations where you may find 1 or 2, and it's unfortunate that that is where our focus is. But it's important that those are brought to our attention.
Well, it's 7 o'clock exactly.
Indeed. So there you go. The polls are open in South Africa. I mean, you talk about all those polling stations, and that's what we're going to be watching, the story of how many of those polling stations open in time, if there are any delays. And we are going to be watching that, of course. So you saw the clock counting down to as soon as the polling stations opened. And now we're counting down the 14 hours that you have to get out there and cast your vote. So from 7 o'clock now, that's right now, until 9 o'clock this evening, that's the time that you have got to go out and vote. Let me ask you, Granville, obviously we, from previous years, we obviously see a lot of maps coming up here on these screens, and that is an indication of, which polling station is open, how it's going, and we also see some red areas. Those obviously haven't come up yet. We'll still give that a bit of time. Then we see the red areas where they aren't opening for various reasons. Perhaps you want to talk us through the technology that's in place to monitor all of this.
Yes, very important. And for this election, Leanne, we also now have communication with our voting stations directly, which we never had previously. So the technology that we have introduced for this year is what we call the voter management devices. And as soon as those devices are now switched on and notified that they are ready, alternatively, if the first voter has been scanned, we will then get an indication that that station is open. Wow. So it's real time, it's live, it's very, very exciting. We will also now, for the very first time in this election, also get live feedback in terms of voter turnout. Previously, we collected these manually through phone calls and having to input information into systems at local offices. But now we have direct communication and linkages with those voting stations. They get fed through here. Tonight, when the results go through, we will also be feeding them through all media houses. So SABC, for example, would have an API interface. As those results come through in real time, you'll obviously be presenting them in your own format, etc. So technology plays a very, very big and important role.
Mm. And traditionally, we would see some of the smaller municipalities, voting districts coming through even before midnight, around that sort of time. You would have places like Robben Island traditionally that would come through just around midnight-ish. So that's when the excitement starts, and it's usually a big cheer when that first number hits the board. So certainly we'll be here waiting for that. Or will I?
Well, you will be waiting here. Good luck.
Okay,
I'll see you at 5. You can sit and watch the board. But it is. I mean, and that's one of the questions that came to my mind is when you're talking about so much of this electricity. I mean, not electricity. That I'm coming to. So much of the technical advancements that have happened in these elections. Obviously relying on the fact that you do have electricity and connectivity and all of these kind of things in place to ensure that this works. So, I mean, what assurances have you got that it is going to go smoothly with regard to that? Because electricity is a big role in all of this.
Yes, now, first of all, it is, and especially in these times, but this will not be the very first election that we are going through with the concerns about electricity supply. I think this will be our third one. What we do have as precautions, we have ensured that all our devices are charged. That was one of our readiness measures, so that they can run on battery. We have also asked or requested our presiding officers to ensure that they remain on charge just in case there are interruptions. Most of the election will happen in daylight. However, if we get to sunset, then we mainly going to be relying on lighting. Now, we do have, as precautions in previous elections, we do have supply of lighting, battery-operated lighting, which are held at central venues that can be deployed at any specific time. So it's just a matter of the deployment as and when a situation arises, so that contingency is in place. We also have Eskom as part of our operation. They are in the house, they have an office here, and they are monitoring. They have a big screen where they are monitoring the supply. And also, if we do have any reports, they are at hand where we will then be working together with them to resolve these issues directly.
And we have to let you go, but any concerns at this point, any indication of any a voting station across the country that may not be able to open or would have opened 5 minutes ago?
Sakina, I must say that, based on the 2 days of special voting, that we had minimal stations that had been affected, either as a result of the weather, which I am told by our weather predictions is not going to be playing a big factor today. If at all, it will maybe just cool some of the temperatures. And then we had very few service delivery protests where we had challenges in opening those stations. However, to combat that or to respond to that, we do have a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C in place. And it has already been deployed in a few stations that were affected over this 2 days, over the weekend, in KZN. So we are monitoring. There is a security plan if we are confronted with any situations that require such a response, and we are ready to deploy as and when required.
Right, we'll have to leave it there.
Just a quick update before we let you go on these special votes that were cast. Are you able to tell us as yet how many of these votes were actually cast over these last 2 days? Have those been counted already?
I have to see how we did on the home visits, because the home visits were manual, and we are still tallying those. But those that happened at the voting station, once again, thanks to our technology, yesterday as at 4, with still an hour to go, we had already achieved about 85%, which is quite high, because normally you find a lot of people would apply for special votes, but they won't necessarily come. So 85% as at 4 o'clock yesterday of the 502,000 that applied, for the 602,000, that applied for voting station visits, they actually had arrived at the station and they had cast their vote.
Yes. All right, so looking good in terms of those numbers. So we'll wait for a proper number once that has been counted. Thank you. Thanks so much for giving us an update from the IEC's perspective as to the readiness. And as you heard, we'll start seeing as those voting stations do open. They should be open around the country, but there are delays here and there. There always are every single election for various reasons. But let's hope that it won't be for too long now. All right, Sakina, where are we off tonight?